Whenever a title goes black silent for months, yes, even after it is announced, that urge for us to learn more about it starts to develop. The less we know, the more we crave for it. Silence marketing leads to hype. Hype leads to the dark side of the force. Fortunately, Tales of Arise did bring balance. What is up, you damn gorgeous and beautiful gamers, and welcome back to Role-Playing Games. Before we continue with the review, I would very much like to invite you to like the video if you find it useful. Subscribe to the channel as well, so that you can join my nerdish conversation about RPGs. That being said, graphics come up first. With the new generation of consoles, the expectation of that generational jump, graphically speaking, is always something we look forward to. Is that graphical jump present in Tales of Arise? Course not. This is still a cross-generational title we are talking about here. Is that a bad thing? Definitely not. The damn thing still looks damn gorgeous. There are many things where Tales of Arise shines graphically speaking. When you enter cities, dungeons, and overall places that require square models for ruins, castles, houses, you'll notice how square they are. And I do not mean that in the bad sense of the word video games-wise speaking. No, they are not square because of low polygons on them. They are because of the art style. As you get close, you see how perfectly placed the textures and protuberances, engravings and details are. Essentially, you have Baroque architecture in the modeling of the game. And it really fits the narrative style, which we will discuss later. It is a modernized Baroque with the special sauce of the developer style, but the squareness Baroque elegance has is there. The engravings, the emblems, it is damn beautiful thing to look at. Another place where Tales shines is in illumination. The level of bloom, particles, light sources and how they are placed around the levels, the world as you explore, how the dust sweeps the floor at times delicately, others wildly. It's just a roller coaster of beautiful things to just appreciate as you play. This is one of those games where you will sometimes just be there, amazing, staring at how beautifully designed it is. It does not come with some drawbacks though. While for most of the game, the skyboxes in the distance, which serve as drawings to build the distant scenery, are well drawn, some other times they are just dull and boring. Yet, when you've seen this kind of level building technique being masterfully used by titles like Dark Souls, you are hardly impressed by other games. It does not come with an excuse though. Tales of Arise has tons of places to visit, and the more assets required, for the most part, you'll just be staring at how damn beautiful, pretty everything else is. Like I said, sometimes those drawings in the distance are not that bad. Speaking of which, draw distance in itself, there is a lot of popping. And I mean a lot of popping on NPCs, light sources, shadows, and you will definitely notice it can break away the immersion at times. Also, while physics effects for the main characters and their outfits are there, dancing delightfully as you run and move, NPC-wise speaking, they are just those static meshes with sleeves that you'll see how they move with them as if they were just one entity on itself, rather than an actual person wearing clothes. Not a deal breaker. But since you already have physics effects on some stuff, it feels weird not to have it in others as well. As an overall package, the damn thing is just damn gorgeous. Sometimes I'm just wandering around appreciating how pretty the thing is. The overall artistic style of the game, the light sources, bloom, the color palette, it is just gorgeous. Now let's move on to music.
Ne. 思うことがあるなら内心で笑われるのは不愉快よ。
笑う？何の話をしてるんだ一体。
服の話よ。ファガン遺跡で見るなり。
いや、
何？
なんでもない。
Forgive you. Hold it. Dance in the wind. Sleep now. Here goes. Searing flame. I'm so good with airborne targets. Do it. Astral energy.
Say no more.
Here I come.
The soundtrack, them soundtrack. This is definitely something I would find myself listening to while I work just for the pleasure of it. And even more than that dramatic orchestra with the choruses in the background embolden the task of your revolution. However, it could work both good for good and bad. Being said that the orchestra is sounding as you explore the world, fight the enemies, is damn amazing, it has no versatility. More than no versatility, this is what you're going to be listening to for the most part of the different regions you visit in the game. In the fields, those dramatic trumpets with the percussion and the rising choruses, but it is the same soundtrack for every region you visit. On cities and towns, chord instruments, violin, cellos, that specific yet dramatic aura, but it thus never changes. There are many different biomes you visit. Most of the games take advantage of such a thing. Ivory sounds for the snowy mountains, bucolic for plains and forests. Who doesn't remember the guitars from the desert at Gerudo Valley? Like I said, the soundtrack in this game is damn high production movie quality. But being such a masterpiece, I will only be left to wonder how could such an amazing talent would have worked on different areas, regions and biomes of the game, if they would have added versatility. Also, it is way too loud. I tone it down to appreciate the rest of the ambient sounds, and other than the sound of the monsters' footsteps and growling, they are nearly non-existent, which is why the music is so damn loud in the first place, to keep you distracted from the fact. Voice acting is on point. There is emotion, there is substance, you feel the emotion in the characters. I have tried both Japanese and English versions, they are really damn well done. You definitely feel the personality each character has in their voice. Now let us move on to narrative. You are the revolution. You are a rebel, you are more than what meets the eye. I shall not say anymore to not spoil you, but the overall art style of the game and the soundtrack work in your favor. The game is always tense and dramatic, never loses the pacing of it. When bad things happen, the percussion on the background with the rising choruses embolden you to strike and move forward. Some characters have more personality than others. Villains enter here as well. But it is such a contrast that helps to give diversity to everyone in this plot. Now, if the main story is so good, how about the secondary stuff? This lingers a little bit on personal preferences. The game provides lore to you and extra information in a comic-like camera angle and characters similar to what we saw in Scarlet Nexus. I enjoy it, and I like it. There's people that do not, and there's that. Now in secondary activities, it is MMO-ish. Secondary quests have no substance and they are point A to point B, kill stuff, come back if you want me to give you skill points. Doesn't really bothers me that much because I love the battle system and I like to have extra chances to get out there and enjoy it. But that feeling of being an MMO occasionally struck me while I was completing side tasks. Speaking of which, what about the gameplay? Let's talk about that. Battle system in the Tales games has always revolved on the core element being Artes. Previous entries of the series had such tremendous difficulty spikes on some bosses, whether because you weren't fully aware of how to use Artes or being underleveled. Arise is more forgiving, combat is more versatile. They added the option to dodge with a perfect dodge mechanics and block as well for some characters. While it is not perfect, it definitely adds that sense of letting you relying a little bit more on your skill rather on the mechanics of the game. For most of the combat, you can just spam flashy weevil moves on enemies on the field with tag teams, combinations and combos over limits and whatnot, just a clusterfuck of strikes with flashy effects. And with everything exploding around you, you do not really have the necessity to see when an enemy is attacking you to try to dodge. And you don't need it for that matter. Stun locking, if you manage well your combos, is real in the game. But once you get to bosses, that is when you start to take your time. Dodging, relying on skill, and I'll be them, does it work wonders. The bigger ones are easier to dodge, but overall skill plays an important part of this entry of the Tales games. Now in mechanics, you have crafting accessories, do not ignore that status ailments are real in Tales games, and you understanding how to counter them is key in some battles. Crafting is quite simple, just kill stuff and gather materials from the world as you explore and move onward. Higher materials for higher accessories you can craft, same goes for weapons. Healing and exploration, the game works similar to that now popular bonfire mechanic every other game has. Before you move onward, you rest and you get CP. You use those to heal the party. If you run out of them, you might want to rethink before moving onward. You still have potions to regenerate such things, so there's that. On the campment, you can get to rewatch scenes and conversations as well as using collected materials to craft food. No tasty animation or models for the food, sadly. Now, microtransactions. Yep, the damn thing is pay to win. You can buy items, Gald, which is the in-game currency, levels to break the game, not new to the Tales series, but disgusting still nevertheless. While some cosmetics are bought as well, you can definitely get new skins for your characters easy and in-game by finding owls. Really appreciate it, since in past Tales games, it was a pain in the ass to get new costumes. The game gives you some different costumes really early in the game as well, so customization is amazing. You also have weapon skins. If you like a weapon, but you find a better one, you can change the looks of it in the character screen for free without having to meddle around with crafting or anything like that, so that's them cool for sure. Alright, like always I break the game down as best as I can so that you can form your very own judgment about whether you want to spend your monies in it or not. At the end of the review I add my bias and personal opinion, recommendations and whatnot in case you're interested in that as well. This is definitely a buy. Most of the times you can't go wrong with JRPGs. They're essentially 50 to 100 plus hours long games of pure story and weevo flashy fights. If you're into that, Tales of Arise is for you. It is also quite forgiving on newcomers. Previous entries of the series require of you deep knowledge of the different mechanics the game has. Not so much in this one. Like I said, when you do have to use your skill in combat, you definitely feel that you can take enemies by relying on your fingers, rather than relying on levels and understanding artists and the mechanics of the game. Graphically speaking, it's a gorgeous looking thing, with marvelous soundtrack that keeps the narrative pacing always on edge and dramatic. Tales of Arise keeps you at it. That being said, that's all from me guys. Do please hit the like button if you enjoyed the review or found it useful. Subscribe to the channel as well if you like the content. Plenty of similar stuff you can find in here. I'll be seeing you damn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Remember, if no one has told you today that you're a damn gorgeous and beautiful person, then you are. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you guys later.